So please welcome our the next host for this panel, Ameri. He has been in the startup ecosystem forever. He has been like in since 2000 in various industries. He has been a co-founder in 7 different companies in various industries. And not only that, one thing that I also really appreciate, he's been very active to support the startup ecosystem. He is with Arctic Startup. He has like one of the big startup conferences in the Nordics. So he has been like not only as a founder, but also as a support of the ecosystem. Been in that system for a long time. So please give a big round of applause to Jan and let him like welcome his panel. Thank you so much for coming here again.
Thank you so much, Philip. It's great to be back in Cluj. How's everybody doing this afternoon? Can I get a yay? What? Come on, wake up. Yay! Excellent, much better. So we're going to talk about smart cities, and we're going to talk about people. All of you are citizens. So I'd like to invite our panelists on stage, and then we're going to do little introductions, and we're going to discuss very interesting things. Please welcome everybody.
I am the mayor of the city with the very smart, talented people. So it's honor and pleasure to be here. Being a mayor of a city with so many talents, it's easy to build up a smart city.
Okay, well, let's go straight to the business then. What does smart city mean to you? You are the guardian of all the citizens here. So how do you see, what's a smart city for you?
First, there is no universal definition of a smart city. There are so many definitions. Second, for my understanding, a smart city, it's a city which it's using the technology in order to improve the quality of life of the people. So what they're doing here, on any aspect of society, from smart governments, from smart governance to smart environment, smart mobility, everything is connected with technology. And we do have the advantage to have such a high numbers of talents and innovation framework in the city, which is making us easier to move forward. So in very simple way, smart city, improve the quality of life of the people. People at the center, not technology, yes. People at the center.
Exactly.
And I would also add that from the perspective of an energy player who has as a vision improving people's lives, I would say that smart city is about the democratization of energy, bringing the independence both to the city and to its citizens. Whether we are talking about smart grids, which would be the internet of energy, or if we are talking about smart customer solutions, making the transition towards the prosumer world, where we're talking about self-independence, where we're talking about photovoltaic solutions, we're talking about e-mobility, where we are talking about solar and all the other solutions that we're bringing into the smart city.
I think from a technology perspective, that ideal smart city would be that using technology could help to improve the quality of life, which including the smart, to make the healthcare more efficient, to make the transportation more efficient, and also lower the cost of living, and to make the communications from people to people, from people to transportation vehicles a lot more efficient. And I think there will be kind of 3 layers. One layer will be the smart sensor to collect all the data. Another layer will be the technology, the tools to analyze on the data. And the third layer will be the adoption of the technology and also application. So I think from the first layer, the public sector and the private sector could both play an important role. And the second layer, maybe private sector could play a better role. And the third layer about application would need a lot more support from the public sector.
Peter?
Yeah, I think the smart city like discussion is very similar to smartphones. So I think that in the end, it's only phones, it's only cities. So they're not like smart or stupid. I think that it's all cities need to be smart cities, and I mean the same thing like with the phones now, that nobody can like this really discusses that, oh, do you have a smartphone or not? So I think that it's a little bit like with all like the best technology, it's like magic. So you know, it just works and you don't even notice it. And I think that this is something that's very important for the cities. I mean, cities are for all of us. You know, cities are for people, and it's super annoying if you notice the technology, because typically you notice the technology when it doesn't work. So you shouldn't notice it. It should just be there. It should just work. Should make life better. And I think that is something that, again, when you design these things, that again, it's super important that we design it so that you don't even notice that it's there. And if you notice it, we've designed it poorly and we designed it wrongly.
Please.
From my personal understanding, I do believe that all the mayors should be green. And from that perspective, I think the concept of smart city, it's helping the mayor to put in practice the green policy in the city. Having in mind what is happening in the world, the major trends in climate change, in urbanization, artificial intelligence, and so on, I think establishing a green approach for the city is the most important thing. And after that, you find the tools, the instruments to go there. So from that perspective, using the smart mobility, the smart governance, as I said before, smart environment, and all these techniques from E.ON, she mentioned from how E.ON, for example, in our city, is advancing with the new technology in order to offer to our people possibility to save time and money using new technology and in the green way. Also smart buildings approach. How can we build up green buildings as a part of the green policy? So the ecosystem of innovation in Cluj was based on the fact that we invest a lot in green buildings, and due to the fact that after the fall of communism, we did not invest on old platform of industrial framework to have just malls or block of flats. We invested in green buildings in order to offer to our talents the solution for innovation. So I think everyone should be green, and in order to be green, you have to be smart.
Yes. So how should the citizen, who's the end user of the smart city, how should the citizen be involved in the decision making? Any ideas?
I mean, we have this thing called democracy in many places, so of course that means that people should get a say, and the more directly you can be involved in the decision making, the better. So I think that's super important, and I think that when people have a possibility to engage, that also creates for, let's say, more happiness, because then you feel like you have a say. And I think the worst thing that we can do is not give people a say. So yeah, I think that it's like the basic, you know, like freedom and democracy are like pretty good things to have, and that goes for cities as well.
I think we are going to be at the end of representative democracy. Maybe sounds tough, but you know why? Because the people do not want anymore to be consulted just once at 4 years or once at 4 years when they vote, and after that they have a parliament, a president, or prime minister, or so on. No, they want to be part of the decision every day, every month, every week, every year.
Yes.
So from that perspective, we are moving from representative democracy to participatory democracy. And here is the smart city concept, here is the technology. Yeah. And we in the city, for the very first time in our country, implemented participatory budgeting process. And we use this process online. Right. So as a form of respect to our citizens, we say, look, you pay your taxes, thank you. We offer you a possibility, some part of the money, you decide in the budget how should be spent and was a very successful program so far. And you can see in the city the bus school program, which was implemented due to the vote of the citizens. Other programs, very, very efficient in day-to-day life.
Yes.
So from that perspective, look, technology is changing even how we can approach the political component of our life, being more present in the decision of our city than was before.
And just to add, coming from a business perspective here, I cannot emphasize enough on the power of customer insights. What we are using in the industry, it's really involving the customer from the very beginning when developing a new product, going through repetitive iterations, co-creating with customers. I could only say that this should definitely happen at the level of the citizen as well, because in the end, the citizen is a customer after all, whether we're looking from a different lens through it. Just to give an example from the industry, and we are here today with the Future Energy Home. This is a solution that we brought to life by involving thousands of customers from the very early stage of the product development, whether we're talking about e-mobility, whether we're talking about apps, whether we're talking about energy management systems. So when you do listen to the customer, or the citizen in this case, there's only value that can be brought in.
Peter, you had something to add?
Yeah, let's continue. It's
Okay.
fine.
Okay, so next thing, we're moving towards technology. We're looking at the intersection of infrastructure and innovation. So it means there's new technologies coming, which might be somehow regulated, or we don't know yet how it works in a bigger concept, so we need to test something before giving it to everybody. So how is it the regulation and how creating sandboxes that maybe we can try drone deliveries on a certain area before giving it to everybody? Do you have any comments on this, that sandboxes in a city environment? Is that possible?
For the city perspective, we are, I think, the main beneficiaries of such an approach. And we try to promote as much as we can our city as being a living lab.
Yes.
So we are inviting private investors to test their solutions, to offer the possibility, and after that, they will sell in other parts, but we are the main beneficiaries. So for example, this participatory budgeting process, we invented here with the local brand. And after that, they moved in another city. So from that perspective, it's very important for the city to provide this open environment as a living lab for testing different solutions, because you are first in charge of the situation, and you are offering better services to our citizens. So from that perspective, every one of you is invited to be part of one of our hackathons. We are organizing many hackathons in the city.
Yes.
After that, we offer the possibility to test your ideas, and after that, of course, to improve the quality of life in our city. So be open, be innovative. I think it's so important. And I would emphasize also the fact that you are not innovative, you are not inclusive. So here, have to be inclusive in an inclusive manner, to have the whole city together with you, not just with a high-level approach.
And I think from the private perspective and from a technology investor perspective, we want to first of all see if the specific technology can solve a bigger problem enough, a bigger problem that cover a wider range of people, wider range of sector, and also have a potential monetization method. So in Silicon Valley, for example, that we have a ride-sharing company. One of the very successful ones is called Line Bike. So when the concept came to the city, they need a support from government as well, because the government will need to give them the license to put their bike on the street. So that's the example of the technology innovate, make the people's life more efficient, make the mobility, transportation more efficient, and with government support. And as VCs, venture capital, we see that that could solve the problem, and with a license approved, and from the private sector, the capital will come over to give more support. Another example you mentioned about a chronic disease, for example, diabetes treatment. That is a chronic disease treatment. And in the US, it's also a big problem. So we see that some of the startups try to solve the potential issue of saving the cost of hospital, cost of Medicare from the government to kind of incentivize people, the patient and doctor from the daily monetization perspective to try to have a sort of small device to monitor your daily activity so as to give you some tips and advice every day and to monitor your life behavior to kind of try to reduce the second recurrence of the disease.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I think that if you look at CDs and we look at like national governments and all that I think that, and if I take like the Silicon Valley model and what's been very much the case, that, okay, let's, like push the limits and like sometimes you even need to break the law, to get some of these new businesses going, which, like maybe not always like a fantastic way to do things. But I think that there is room for this kind of like more European or I would even actually I would call it the Nordic model, and have more collaboration between kind of like the governments and the business side, because I think there's a big responsibility from the public side. It's not only to kind of like stay out of the way and deregulate and make things possible, but it's also very important if you take mobility as one example and talk about Uber, Lyft, all of these companies, and we have here Bolt and so on and so on. Okay, it's very important that these new entrants can come in and operate, but it's also important that we have regulation in place for them to open up their services. So you can, if you want to create these smart mobility solutions that then span different modes of transportation, it's not good enough to just deregulate. You also need to regulate and force all the players, public ones, private ones, to enable others to integrate their services in these multimodal transportation chains. So I think that this could be one area where we here in Europe could do much better than the rest of the world, because I think that it's not confrontational, it's more about collaboration. And I think that this is something that, again, we're doing a pretty good job, I think, in Nordic countries, and also, I mean, if you look at the results on the innovation side, created a few success stories over the years, and the rest of Europe needs to step up and do much, much better. But I think that there is power in this kind of collaboration between private and public side, and maybe that is one area where Europe could really shine.
Here, United States it's far much it's ahead of Europe from my perspective, and I'll give you a small detail about data. I told you yesterday at the beginning of the conference that I saw that movie with Patrick Stewart, The Dune. It was in 1984, and in that movie, what struck me was a phrase: "Whoever controls the spice controls the universe." That was a very famous phrase for me. And now I think more and more we are living in the world of sensors, data, and data. Whoever controls the data controls the universe. Yeah. So the problem here is how can you regulate the access to the data? And here in the city, I give a small example. We do not have yet the mentality that some sensors data are public information. And all the companies, starting from public transport to others, they said, it's our data, it's not your mayor office data, we'll keep there. So now we try to be the very first city in the country to regulate an open data regulation in the city, to say this is not your private data, it's our public data, and to offer to the community to develop more solutions for our city. So from that perspective, we are a little much behind of United States from that perspective.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say behind. I think that we're different. And of course, in many areas, we're behind the US and behind China. So I think that's for sure. But I think that also we don't want to have a model where there are individual players like Facebook, Google come to mind first, that you're totally dependent on these kind of companies, and then if they decide to close access to the social graph, your startup is like dead. I mean, there's nothing you can do. You don't have access and they just decided to kill you. So I think that we need to have regulation that then actually forces all players, public or private, to open up access to the data, because I think that we need to remove these very dangerous control points. And I mean, just look at some of the elections, what can happen. So I think that it's very, very important that we keep that in mind. But the way I'm looking at this is that we have a chance to address these in Europe better than they've been done in other parts of the world. And I think that there's massive opportunity to build kind of like a much more level playing field. And I think that all public data, unless otherwise specified by default, should be open. I mean, that there's no reason why data that we paid for, like with our tax money, that should be like limited. But again, the same applies then for the private side, that again with transportation, it's obvious that if we don't have access to the data, we can't create fantastic services. So very, very important to open up everything. But yeah, open data, of course, super important for all of us.
Okay, very good, very good. And then, of course, when we talk about collaboration between private and public sector, there's some challenges raising. Maybe some things are slow, or you hit a wall sometimes. Is there something from the private side that could be maybe improved or smoothened? Do you have any good stories where it went really smooth and well, or maybe some of those little bit rougher ideas where you actually hit the wall and couldn't go further? Anything come in mind?
Well, I would say that what we all have to understand is that we are in a transition period. We are in a learning phase. We all need to learn in order to build this new ecosystem that we want to really create and live in. And an ecosystem cannot be built just by one player. It has to be a participative process. It has to bring together all the involved parties. I would make an analogy again with the corporate world, because that's where I'm coming from. Mm-hmm. But I would say that whenever we develop a product, we also need legal, we need regulation, we need marketing, sales, whatever. So that's the sort of participation that we need also at a larger scale. What I would mention from an E.ON perspective is how we can shape the future, bringing an example that we have with our project Next E, which is we are part of a consortium, of a European one, that brought the largest amount of EU funds for e-mobility into Romania. And I have to say that I'm proud. We are now having 12 public infrastructure charging stations, marking basically the first electric highway of Romania. By the end of August, we will finish the connection between Târgu Mureș and Iași, basically connecting Transylvania and Moldova. We do continue towards Bucharest and then towards Constanța. Of course, in this consortium, it's not only energy companies, we're talking about automotive players, and definitely in order to be able to do such a large-scale public infrastructure project, we needed the support of local authorities. Yes, it's not always very fast, but as I said, we need to learn from this. We are at the beginning of this new world that we are creating, and we all need to learn our lessons and to adapt really fast.
Okay, and then how important is it to get like a international expertise and capital when you're starting collaboration? can you do everything locally, or is it like you need to bring some expertise or money from outside?
Nothing is local anymore. So from that perspective, you have to share the best practices and to be in collaboration. For example, we have been discussing 5 minutes and we find out many solutions of collaboration from the United States to Europe in just 5 minutes because we are in the same boat and are talking the same language and have to be open and to discuss nothing. It's in this very moment, it's that term, glocal, I think is the best expression. Glocal is the way. So from the city perspective, what do I feel? It's exactly what I felt when I read to my daughter when she was 5 years old, and I read Alice in the Wonderland, I know that story, and was a phrase when the Queen was saying to Alice, you have to move very fast just in order to stay in the same place. So it's exactly the case with the city. We have to move every day very fast just to keep the place, and if you want to move faster, you have to be collaborative, you have to work with all the solutions from outside, because no one has the entire truth, but you have to work for that. And here in the city, what the lady from E.ON said, it's so important to have an ecosystem, not ecosystem.
Yes.
Ecosystem means, yes, the mayor is just one, the mayor office is just one of the stakeholders, and working together with the business environment, with universities, civil society, and citizens in order to have the best solutions. So from my perspective, even from private life to the public life, from corporate life, eco, not ego, it's one of the key elements of success. Last but not least, I would emphasize that we do not use here in Romania yet the advantage of public-private partnership enough.
Okay.
Because we do not have all the money in the public budget. No one in the world. And like United States, like some good parts of European Union, they use the public-private partnership in order to complement the budget money. So here, I think we should have more courage. We do have the openness. We are waiting for the business environment to challenge us and to move forward public-private partnership, which I think is the key to modernize Romania.
Any quick comments?
Yeah, I want to share international experience that, because I grew up in both China and the United States, and I see that how the efficient of Chinese government when they are doing something for public transportation in a city in order to improve the efficiency of transportation life quality. The example is a high-speed train, because it only took the entire government about 3 years to build up the very widespread high-speed train network across China, across the entire country. That is amazing. I think that is one way they do it is to make the capital very efficiency. So the central government and also the local government kind of work together, and they have a money pool together with both majority of the fund from the public sector and also have private sector participate in it. But the government was really able to unite every single piece of, I guess, local government to work on a high-speed train. But in comparison to the US, I live in California for 3 years, and I think all the California people really need a high-speed train from San Francisco to Los Angeles, but that is kind of been in discussion with government for more than 5 years already. And I just recently learned that this project will be really kind of impossible. So, from that perspective, I think the people really want to make it happen, but the public sector is just not supportive enough.
Okay, I'd love to keep on going for another 30 minutes, maybe another 1 hour, but unfortunately our time is up. So I'd like to thank you, audience, and thank you, our amazing panelists. Can we get a hand for our panel? Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.